Hello everybody. Today I'm going to give you a little overview on infographics. This is obviously brought to you by the Digital Studio, and yes, hopefully this little walkthrough is helpful. So some things that we're going to go over here, or some important things to keep in mind, are what are the goals of your infographic? Is it an informative infographic or is it a persuasive infographic? What's your target audience? How about your design of your infographic? Is it balanced? What the format of it is going to be, the colors, if they contrast well, and the fonts. And then finally, the use of graphics in your infographic. First, we're going to go over what your argument is. Is it persuasive? Do you want to prove a point? Or is it informative? Do you want to provide information? These are kind of the two main categories that your infographic will fall into. If it's persuasive, you can see the graphic here on the left. You're trying to tell people to say no to eating junk food. But if it's informative, you're trying to tell people on the right about elephants. So you just have to know what your argument is, what you're trying to prove, what you're trying to do with your infographic before you go start making it. Next, you want to know who your audience is. So are you trying to tell people, like if you're trying to teach about if the world is round or flat, you have to know who you're presenting to. Are you presenting to maybe somebody or an audience who knows a lot about this topic, so they clearly know, for instance, the earth is round. However, maybe you're not presenting to an audience who's well versed in the topic and they believe the earth is flat. So you have to probably start from the basics. So just keep that in mind depending on what your audience is. Same here, are you presenting to experts or novices? This depends on what your infographic is, who you're giving it to, what your professor says. Next up, we're going to talk about the balance between the slides, or between the infographic itself. We can divide it up into 4 quadrants, for the most part, depending on what your infographic will be like. This probably helps you makes it more sense. So if you see on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a big design, a big, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember right now. So there's a big infographic. You type design on the left side of the screen, but on the right side of the screen there's a lot of information. So it wouldn't make sense to just put a big design on the left and then another big design on the right. That would just be too much information. So you want to keep it balanced somehow in terms of like the top and the bottom or the 4 quadrants. Just keep that in mind so you don't have too much information or too many graphics coming at you all at once. Next up, we have the format. So formatting can be a little different depending on what you're trying to do. The left is a more poster-oriented, on a large-scale infographic. So this can be blown up and kind of just put up as just a poster. The text can be small, and you can use smaller graphics because it's going to be blown up very large. The one on the right is much more vertical. It's thinner. So it's probably going to be smaller, so if you go to print it, that really wouldn't be as helpful. So it's more likely to be used on a phone or on a computer, so you can scroll through it. And you can like take your time to look at it rather than just a poster where you can glance at everything. The format of the one in the middle is so you can just read the information as you're scrolling through, rather than in the poster, you can look at the entire thing at once. And the one on the right has a little less of a controlled flow of information, but there is still a sort of symmetrical divide. If you see all the way, going back to the balance, if you see on the left you have a giant picture of Asia, we have the tiger, but then on the right and the bottom you have information, you have text, but it's not too overwhelming. You have to be careful not to have too much information. You need to have some kind of a flow here, rather than just having information filling up everywhere. You have to have some negative space so you don't overclutter and overwhelm your audience. Next, you can talk about your colors. you have to have some kind of a color theme going on. It has to be, or a scheme. It has to be purposeful, and it has to emphasize whatever you're talking about. So obviously, if you're talking about a brief history of Starbucks, you probably want to use Starbucks colors, coffee colors. So you have the greens, the browns, etc. Same with the one on the right, or the who are the safer drivers. You obviously using the darker, the reds to emphasize your point. When you think red, that's obviously kind of a danger aspect, or it stresses something you're talking about. Where on the blue, the cooler colors don't have that much stress. So you're seeing that if you go on the, so if you're seeing that the red is the information you want to get, that shows that who are the safer drivers, that tells you right away. So some tools to help with color schemes, there's colors.co and Adobe Color. This will just help you make some color schemes. Both of these websites are super helpful because if you want a specific color pattern or color scheme, you can lock certain colors, you can pick certain colors, and then the website will help you match them with whatever other colors. You can just scroll through them, shuffle through them, and you can have tons and tons of color schemes. Also, to keep in mind that you don't want a color scheme that's too off the walls, too crazy, because that will overwhelm your audience. This goes hand in hand with contrast. Same to go with your headings. If you have to try to think about how you want to lay out your infographic. Remember, keeping in mind that you have to somehow differentiate between what the title of your infographic is, what your subtitle is, and then all your body text. You have to keep that consistent throughout the infographic, and 2 different sections should obviously have different headings or something that will differentiate to the audience, to the reader, what you're talking about. That goes hand in hand with big text. Big text means that you're emphasizing something. Same with bold colors. Like I talked about the who are the safer drivers. Red is a bold color that stands out. So don't shoot the messenger. The don't shoot is in red. That stands out to you instantly. Same with 1 death per week on average. That's very big. So that's the first thing that your eye catches, is the red on the light background, so it sticks out to the audience. Finally, you obviously can use graphics in your infographic. Graphs and icons are really good because they're easy to understand, but you have to make sure they're high quality so they don't get distorted, and they should always serve a purpose. You shouldn't just throw something in it. That's just for dramatic effect. You need to have good graphics that are titled, labeled, captioned. You need a site where they're from. If it's not easy to understand, it's just not a good graphic. For example, you can have graphs. You can either make your own graphs or take some from your source, but make sure you cite the source. You can have like bar charts like you see here, pie chart, etc. Make sure that if you make a bar chart or a pie chart, that the colors obviously match your color scheme, so it doesn't just stand out like a sore thumb. And then finally with icons, be sure to use these icons purposefully to get your infographic where it needs to go. And stay away from icons that don't make sense. So again, if you're just throwing something in there just because it looks pretty, don't do that. Just stick with the information. Stick with what the people need to know. So where to get some icons and graphics for free, flaticon.com, which is the website you see on the right here. Canva.com has some free graphics, but some that cost money, so be careful with that one. And then Google Images, just change the quality to large and find the highest quality images. You can also look up transparent images, etc. So just keep in mind the pricing aspect, because I know Canva definitely charges you for some of them, so keep that in mind. But this is another example of not that many graphics, but the graphics that they do have here are representative of what they're showing. So they have obviously the cause of death from falls. They have this graphic in the background that looks like scaffolding up a building, but it's in the background. It's not as in your face. In the foreground, you have all the little speech bubbles that tell you what you're talking about. This infographic isn't too heavy on the icons, but there are a few that get the job done. This is a screenshot of Canva. You could just log in if you have a Google account, or you can just create a new one. It's a pretty handy tool if you want to create anything from infographics to little ads, to even desktop backgrounds. Another good way to have to create infographics is you could just create them on PowerPoint instead of Canva. Canva has a bunch of templates, that's the word. But if you don't want to make an account or if you don't like Canva, you can always use PowerPoint. Just make sure, and in PowerPoint, you can make when you put your picture in, you can mess around with the proportions of or the dimensions of the slide. You can add text, all that stuff. If you go a handy tool is if you go on the design ideas slide, it's very helpful with laying out your infographic. So just something to keep in mind. And then these are just some examples created by one of our tutors, Elsa, about just simple infographics that get the point across. They obviously have the blues for the color scheme because the honors program here at Embry-Riddle, its colors are blue, so the Embry-Riddle's colors. So yes, that's just some examples that have been made by our tutor. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped. There will be another video on the specifics of Canva, so if you want to use Canva, go check that out.